The rain didn't just fall in Montana. It hammered against the earth. It turned the dirt roads of the Bitterroot Valley into thick, sucking mud that threatened to swallow anything that stopped moving. Inside the climate-controlled cab of a luxury SUV, Alina stared out at the gray washout. She couldn't feel the vibration of the engine through the floorboards. She couldn't feel her feet inside her expensive leather boots. For 2 years, ever since the stage lights shattered and the rigging collapsed during her final solo at the Met, she hadn't felt anything below her waist. "This is a mistake," Mark said. His hands were tight on the steering wheel. He adjusted his silk tie, looking out at the dilapidated wooden archway ahead. "Look at this place, Elle. It's a junkyard." The brochure was misleading. "It wasn't a brochure, Mark," Alina whispered. Her voice was hollow. It was a letter. A handwritten letter. They passed under the arch. The sign swung on a rusted hinge. Ironwood Ranch. It looked less like a rehabilitation center, and more like a place where time had simply given up. Mark parked the pristine vehicle next to a battered red pickup truck that had more rust than paint. He sighed, the sound sharp and annoyed. "I'm not taking the wheelchair out in this mud," he stated, looking at his watch. "I'll go knock. We tell him thanks but no thanks, and we make the flight back to Boston by tonight." Alina didn't answer. She just watched the porch of the main cabin. The door opened. A man stepped out. He didn't look like a doctor. He didn't look like a therapist. He looked like he had been carved out of the granite mountains behind the house. Caleb was in his 60s. He wore a canvas coat stained with oil and earth. He wore a cowboy hat pulled low, the brim dripping with rain. But it was the way he walked that caught Alina's eye. He limped, a heavy, jagged hitch in his step that favored his left leg. He didn't come to the car. He just stood on the porch, leaning against a wooden post, waiting. "Unbelievable," Mark muttered, opening his door. The cold wind rushed in, smelling of wet pine and horse manure. Alina watched Mark run through the rain, his expensive shoes squelching in the muck. She saw the two men speak. Mark was gesturing wildly, pointing back at the car, pointing at his watch. Caleb didn't move. He was a statue. Finally, Caleb looked past Mark's frantic shoulder. His eyes locked onto Alina through the rain-streaked glass. They were blue, piercing, and terrifyingly calm. He bypassed Mark entirely, stepping off the porch and walking straight into the mud. He opened Alina's door. "You coming?" Caleb asked. His voice was like gravel grinding together. "My fiancé says it's too muddy for the chair," Alina said, feeling that familiar spike of shame. Caleb looked at the folded wheelchair in the back. Then he looked at her legs. "Then leave the chair," he said. Before she could protest, before Mark could scream, the old cowboy reached in. His arms were like steel cables. He scooped her up, effortlessly lifting her dead weight from the seat. "Put her down," Mark shouted, slipping in the slush. "You have no liability insurance for this. She is fragile." Caleb ignored him. He held Alina close to his chest, shielding her from the wind with his shoulder. He smelled of tobacco and hay. "She ain't glass, son," Caleb grunted over his shoulder. "She's just broken, and broken things can be fixed, long as you don't mind getting your hands dirty." The inside of the cabin was warm, illuminated by the orange glow of a wood-burning stove. It was sparse. No medical equipment, no parallel bars, just worn leather furniture, shelves lined with dusty books, and a large window looking out toward the stables. Caleb set Alina down on a heavy oak chair near the fire. He didn't ask if she was comfortable. He walked to the kitchen, the heavy thud drag of his boot on the floorboards marking the rhythm of the room. Mark burst in a moment later, breathless and wet. "That was assault," Mark hissed, wiping rain from his face. "We are leaving, now." Caleb poured coffee into 3 tin mugs. He set them down on the table. "Doctors told you she'd never walk," Caleb said. "It wasn't a question." 3 specialists, Mark snapped. "The best neurologists in New England. Her spinal cord is bruised. Not severed, but the nerve pathways have gone dormant. It's been 2 years. Atrophy has set in. Now if you're done playing cowboy, help me get her back to the car." Caleb looked at Alina. She was staring at the fire. She felt small, useless, a doll being fought over by 2 children. "You want to go?" Caleb asked her. Alina looked up. "What can you do that they couldn't?" she whispered. "Nothing," Caleb said, taking a sip of the black coffee. "I can't fix you. I ain't a doctor." He pointed out the window toward the barn. Through the rain, a black horse was pacing in a muddy paddock. It was rearing up, kicking at the fence. "Wild, angry, that's Whisper," Caleb said softly. "Got tangled in barbed wire a year back, tore his leg up bad. Vet said put him down, said he'd never run, said he was too mean to handle anyway." Alina watched the horse. The animal looked terrifying. It looked lonely. "I didn't fix him," Caleb continued. "I just gave him a reason to want to stand up. He runs fine now. Still has a limp, but he runs." Caleb turned his gaze back to Alina. "The doctors treated your legs, miss. They didn't treat your will. You got anger in you. I saw it in the car. You're mad at the world." Alina felt tears prick her eyes. "I am angry," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Good," Caleb nodded. "Anger is fuel. Pity is water, and this man here, he is drowning you in water." Mark stepped forward, his face red. "I take care of her. I have renovated our entire house to be accessible." I handle her appointments. I am the only one standing by her. You're keeping her sitting, Caleb corrected. He turned to Alina, 6 weeks. You stay here, no wheelchair in the house. You crawl if you have to, you ride, you work. If you ain't walking by the first thaw, I'll drive you back to Boston myself and sell my truck to pay for your time. Mark grabbed Alina's hand. Please, this is insanity. Look at him. He's a cripple himself. Alina looked at Caleb's bad leg, then she looked at his eyes. There was no pity there, only a challenge. She pulled her hand away from Mark. Go home, Mark, she said softly. What, go home? I'm staying. The first week was not therapy, it was hell. Caleb didn't have a gym, he had a barn. Every morning at 5 a.m. he banged on her door. He had removed the wheelchair from her room the first night. To get breakfast, she had to drag herself from the bed, down the hallway, using the handrails he had crudely bolted into the logs. Her arms burned. Her pride burned hotter. Move it, Caleb would bark, cooking eggs on the cast iron skillet. Whisper is hungry. He don't wait for folks who feel sorry for themselves. He made her curry the horses. She had to balance against the stall walls, her dead legs dragging in the sawdust while she brushed the massive animals. Whisper the black stallion was the hardest. He was skittish. If she moved too fast, he snapped. If she showed fear, he bullied her. He knows you're weak, Caleb said one afternoon. He was leaning on a pitchfork as Alina lay panting in the straw, covered in sweat and horsehair. Animals don't care about your medical chart, Alara. They care about gravity. You're low to the ground. Your prey, I can't stand. She screamed at him, slamming her fist into the ground. I can't feel them, Caleb. I can't feel anything. Then stop trying to use your legs, he yelled back. His voice boomed off the rafters. It was the first time he had raised his voice. He walked over, his limp heavy, and grabbed a rope. He threw it over the rafter beam. Your legs forgot what to do because your brain told them the show was over. You gotta reconnect the wires. Pull yourself up. I'm tired, she sobbed. So am I, Caleb said. His voice dropped to a whisper. He sat down on a hay bale next to her. He rolled up his pant leg. His left leg was a map of scars, the muscle twisted and concave. Horse fell on me in '98, he said. Crushed the pelvis, shattered the femur. Lay in the dirt for 6 hours before they found me. I didn't walk for 3 years. Alina wiped her face, looking at the ruin of his leg. How did you do it? I decided that the ground was cold, Caleb smiled sadly, and I wanted to see the sunrise from the saddle again. You gotta want something more than you want the pain to stop. He stood up and offered her the rope ends. Mark called, Caleb said. He's coming back, says he has a court order, says I'm abusing you. Alina gripped the ropes, her knuckles turned white. When? 2 days before the storm hits. Alina looked up at the rope. She looked at her legs, limp in her jeans. She closed her eyes and visualized the nerves lighting up like a highway map. She pulled. Her body lifted inches off the ground. She held it, shaking, screaming silently, until her muscles failed and she collapsed. Again, Caleb said, the storm came early. It wasn't just snow. It was a wide-out blizzard that buried the Bitterroot Valley under 3 feet of powder in 12 hours. Power lines went down instantly. The cabin went dark, save for the fire. But the real crisis wasn't the cold. It was the noise from the barn. A high-pitched, terrified whinny cut through the howling wind. The roof, Caleb said, grabbing his coat, the old beam in the north stable. The snow load is too heavy. He grabbed a flashlight and headed for the door. Alina was sitting on the couch, her legs wrapped in a blanket. Stay here, he ordered. You can't go alone, she said. Your leg in this. I ain't got a choice. He slammed the door. Alina waited. 10 minutes passed. 20. Then, a sound that stopped her heart, a crack like a gunshot, followed by a dull, heavy thud, then silence. Caleb, she screamed, no answer. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her chest. He was out there, hurt, maybe dead, and she was stuck in a chair. She looked at the door. It was 50 feet away. Outside, the snow was waist-deep. She dragged herself to the window. She couldn't see anything but swirling white. Your prey, his voice echoed in her head. You're low to the ground. No, she hissed. She threw the blanket off. She didn't crawl this time. She grabbed the back of the heavy oak chair. She hauled herself up. Her knees buckled, threatening to fold backward. She screamed in frustration, locking her elbows, forcing her upper body to act as a crutch. She hopped, dragging her legs, one foot, then the other. She made it to the wall. She leaned against the logs, gasping. She found a heavy walking stick Caleb kept by the door. She grabbed it. She opened the door. Wind hit her like a physical blow, knocking her sideways. She fell into the snow on the porch. The cold was shocking, piercing through her clothes instantly, but something happened when the cold hit her legs. A ting, a tiny electric sting in her left calf. It was pain, and it was the most beautiful thing she had ever felt. She stabbed the walking stick into the snow. Get up, she growled. She forced herself up. She didn't walk. She stumbled. She dragged. She fought the wind for every inch. She reached the barn door. Inside, a beam had collapsed, pinning Caleb by the waist against a stall door. Whisper was going crazy in the stall next to him, kicking the wood. Caleb was unconscious, blood running down his temple. Alina dropped the stick. She needed leverage. She grabbed the beam. It was immense. She couldn't lift it with her arms. She needed her back. She needed her legs. She wedged her shoulder under the wood. She closed her eyes. She didn't think about the Met. She didn't think about Mark. She thought about the sunrise. Push, she screamed. She drove her heels into the dirt floor. Muscles that had been dormant for 2 years fired. They spasmed. They burned. But they held. The beam shifted. 6 inches, enough for Caleb to slide down, gasping for air as he woke up. The morning sun was blinding, reflecting off the sea of white snow that covered the valley. The county plow had finally cleared the main road. A black luxury SUV crunched up the driveway, followed by a sheriff's cruiser. Mark stepped out, flanked by a deputy. He looked furious, vindicated. He marched toward the cabin. "I'm getting her out of here," Mark shouted at the closed door. "And I'm pressing charges for negligence." The door opened. Mark stopped. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Caleb wasn't the one standing in the doorway. It was Alina. She was leaning heavily on the doorframe, wearing oversized jeans and a flannel shirt. She looked exhausted. Her face was bruised, but she was standing, not just standing. She let go of the doorframe. She took one step onto the porch. Her movement was jerky, ungraceful, like a foal learning to walk. But her feet were flat on the wood. She took another step. The deputy took off his hat. Mark stared, his face draining of color. He whispered, That's a reflex. You're hurting yourself." "No, Mark," she said. Her voice was clear and strong in the crisp air. "I'm healing." Caleb stepped out behind her. He had a bandage around his head and was leaning on a crutch, his bad leg useless from the accident in the barn. "She saved my life last night," Caleb rasped, carried 100 pounds of timber on those legs. Mark looked at Alina, then at the wheelchair still folded in the back of his car. He realized with a sinking finality that he didn't recognize the woman on the porch. The fragile doll was gone. "You can leave, Mark," Alina said. "I'm not coming with you, but your treatment," Mark stammered. "The wedding. This is my treatment," she said. She nodded toward the corral where Whisper was standing, calm and still in the snow. "And as for the wedding, I need a partner, Mark, not a caretaker." Mark stood there for a long moment. He looked at Caleb, who just tipped his hat. Mark turned around, got in his car, and drove away. The silence he left behind was peaceful. Alina turned to Caleb. Her legs were shaking violently. She was about to fall. Caleb caught her. He held her up, just like he had on the first day in the rain. "You did good, kid," he whispered. His voice was thick with emotion. "I walked." She laughed through tears, burying her face in his shoulder. "Caleb, I walked." "I know," he smiled, looking out at the mountains. "Now the real work begins. Whisper needs a ride tomorrow." She looked up at him. "Think I can do it?" "I don't think," Caleb said, patting her back. "I know, you're a cowboy now. We don't give up." Thanks for watching. Subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories.